Hi everybody, welcome to Live Wire Review. My name's Jeremy and I have Wes with me today. We're doing a comparison on the Rivian R1T versus the Ford F-150 Lightning. I'll just mention right up front, Bourgeois Motors in Midland, Ontario donated this vehicle for this video, so thank you very much to them. And let's get into it.
Hey everybody, Wes Aranto from Aranto Real Estate. I do real estate in the region of Simcoe and surrounding area, and I'm happy to be out here with Jeremy to bring my R1T to light and put it against the big Goliath over there, the Ford F-150, which is a beauty as well. So let's get started on it.
Yeah, so they're both electric pickup trucks. They're both supposed to do the same thing, but I'd say these are aimed at two different audiences. And one thing I'm going to point out up front, I'm actually kind of surprised about the weight, but it's not surprising to me because the F-150 is all aluminum. The curb weight of the Rivian R1T is actually 7,000 pounds, and you'll be surprised to know that the F-150 Lightning is actually around 6,600 pounds. So this one is 400 pounds lighter than the Rivian, despite being so much bigger. But the Rivian has a few advantages over the F-150 Lightning that we're going to get into. Let's start off with the air suspension in the Rivian versus the Ford. The Ford only has independent suspension with coil springs.
Yeah, and the Rivian has an air suspension, has about 6 inches of travel. So it actually is in one of its lowest settings right now, and you can program it so that when you park the vehicle, it goes to the lowest setting to get people in and out easily. So nice feature that way. You can see clearly it's a much smaller vehicle. Even with the roof rack, its height isn't as high as the F-150, but keep in mind, this can come up about 6 inches, which will make it a little bit closer, but definitely not the same size.
Which pushes about up to 15 inches of ground clearance when it's at its top setting, which is pretty neat.
And that's what this truck was designed for, to be in the bush, off-roading, camping, adventure concept, where I would argue the F-150 is much more about utility, work-related direction, and they both have great use in their own environment.
Okay, so one of the areas that these two trucks differ is actually in price. Wes was lucky enough to order his very early on, and he just got his truck now a couple of years later, I think it is.
Over 3 years.
So they were actually similar prices back then when he ordered it, but that is not the same today. Wes's truck sitting right there is $132,000 Canadian with the quad motor package, 835 horsepower, 908 pound-feet of torque. And the F-150 Lightning here, there's a couple different battery sizes you can get. You can get a 98 kilowatt hour battery or a 131. The one we have here today is an XLT dual motor long range with the 131 kilowatt hour battery. And Wes's has the second from the top battery because with the quad motor, you can't get that max package battery. So he's sitting around 135 kilowatts. So very similar in that area, which means that the ranges are actually going to be quite similar as well. From people I have spoken to with the F-150 Lightning, about 380 kilometers in the winter, 480 kilometers in the summer, or Adam Bourgeois himself has actually gotten 400 in the winter and 500 in the summer. So you can get a really good idea of what you're going to expect. Now, we talked about the Rivian in its own video, so check that one out if you want some more details on that. But it's sitting right around that 400 kilometer mark as well. But you said that you could actually push it almost as high as 550 if you drive it gently.
Yes, now to be fair, most people with electric vehicles don't enjoy driving in conservative mode, which this of course has. But having said that, if you really decide you wanted to, it can be pretty effective. Having said that, in sport mode, I do believe they would get very similar ranges when pushed the same way.
Hey, so, while you're bringing it up, the 0 to 60 times. The Rivian wins hands down with that. 0 to 60 in 3 seconds flat in the Rivian R1T. Whereas with the Lightning here, you're 0 to 60 in right around 4 seconds, maybe just a tad over. But it is just exhilarating in both trucks. You just hear that tire wrinkle and it just takes off like a rocket. It's not like any other pickup truck on the market. Now we're actually going to talk about the frunks now that we're up front.
Yep.
And we're going to open these up. They're both powered, which is pretty cool. Slightly different approach here. The frunk on the F-150 Lightning I really like here because it has this opening in the front. It makes it very easy to load your cargo. Set of golf clubs fits in here perfectly, and what's even better, the Pro Power onboard is accessible at the front. Now it's only 120 volt up here at the front, 2.4 kilowatts. This will easily run all your power tools. In my Lightning video from the past, you actually saw me running a skill saw, and it had no problem with the surge power in that skill saw or anything. So doing work around the lot on this truck is super easy. Now the Rivian here has a very large frunk as well, and it actually has a deeper section here, but it is closed at the front, so you have to lift your stuff over. You can't fit quite as much in here as you can in the F-150 Lightning, but still a very usable space. One other option that the R1T has is it also has a gear tunnel in the back. The F-150 Lightning does not come with a gear tunnel, but it is like a standard pickup truck, and this is a nice usable space. Okay, so now we're at the business end of these electric pickup trucks, and there's actually quite a few differences between these two. So the use case scenario for these trucks is totally different. As we already mentioned, this is definitely your utility work truck. It's not going to be as good off-road as that adventure vehicle because the Rivian comes with a quad motor setup. It can individually control all 4 motors in the vehicle, which means it can do incredible things with software programming, including a differential lock. Now this one is not lacking in that department. It can actually do a locking rear end, which is pretty cool. I don't know about the locking front end on this truck, but I have heard that the rear end is a locker. Now let's go on to the tailgates here. So they're both powered. They operate in a totally different way if you want to open that one there.
Yep.
Now they have a couple different features here. This one is a 5.5-foot bed, and it is a very wide and expansive bed. So this is going to be your utilitarian truck. I would highly recommend getting a Line-X bed liner in this one just to make it the most usable pickup truck space you can get. You have your 4 tie downs in here. You have a light in the bed so that you can see. And one of my favorite features of all time is it comes with a Pro Power onboard system, and not just a small one. This one is the 7.2 kilowatt on the 240 volt, upwards of 9.6 kilowatts of total output from the system. But one of the best features of the Pro Power onboard on this truck is the fact that you can charge another electric vehicle with it. If you have the plug that fits in that twist lock, you can actually charge it at a full 7.2 kilowatts, which is really, really handy when you're out on the road. In fact, I know of a business who runs an F-150 Lightning, and they actually charge their lower range cars when they're out at different places doing tint jobs for other people. And that's the neatest thing ever.
It's cool.
I think they run a Volkswagen e-Golf, and with a 100-kilometer range on them, they need to charge up once in a while. So a couple other features we're going to talk about here is the Rivian also has a power outlet in the bed, but it's only a 120 volt and what, right around 1500 watts?
That's right. Correct, it is. This one has the compressor. That would be sort of its more unique feature. And, of course, the sliding piece here that actually extends the bed, which makes it more usable because it's such a smaller truck. And it too has lighting in the bed as well as lighting that shines down from the back, and it has a camera that shoots into the bed that you can actually access while it's actually in motion.
Huh, this one actually has a camera too, so they both have cameras that shine down in the bed. They both have lighting. This one is kind of unique. It's only a 4.5-foot bed, but you can actually fit a 4x8 sheet between the wheel wells, which is one of the unique features of this. If you were to go into a Hyundai Santa Cruz, you actually have to prop the tailgate up in order to fit a 4x8 sheet, whereas a Rivian will take a 4x8 sheet no problem. The F-150 Lightning, being a normal pickup truck, fits a 4x8 sheet just fine the way it sits. There is no special tricks needed for that. Now, the Rivian bed being 4.5 feet sounds kind of short, but with this extension here, it makes it a full 7 feet. So when you take that 4x8 sheet, it's only 1 foot off of the bed. And there's actually quite a few tie downs in here. They're a little bit lower, and a lot of people have been using just the latches from the side here to tie down some of their cargo. So both are useful in that respect. It's just this one has the bigger bed. Now, the F-150 Lightning does have another feature here. As we've shown in our other videos, we have this step, and we have this, it clicks up so that you can just step up into the truck very easily, which is a very, very handy feature. And it just slides away. Now, one of the other differences we notice between this is the F-150 Lightning, as long as I get the button here, has a powered tailgate that actually goes up as well.
And this one does not.
Well, there you go. So while we're at the back end of these electric pickup trucks, of course, the number one question we get is about towing. And the F-150 Lightning has a maximum towing capacity of 10,000 pounds. You have to opt for the max trailer tow package to get that. But what's really nice is you get a 7-pin connector, and you get the 4-pin connector, and the brake controller is built in. Now, there's no fancy coverage you have to take off to get to this hitch. It's built right into the back, so it's ready to go, as an F-150 Lightning should be. So over to the Rivian here. You want to talk about this one?
Yeah, so in my case, the casing does need to come off because that's just how they built it. Now it is built in. It has a 7-pin connector, so you would need an adapter to go to 4-pin. The brake controller is electronic and built into every Rivian, and all the Rivian R1Ts, not the R1Ss, they're only 7,000 pounds, but the R1Ts tow up to 11,000 pounds out of the box.
Okay, that's pretty cool. So both these trucks are usable for towing, and they're almost the same. So it's incredible. I would have to say, in my estimate, they probably tow about the same range too. Probably in the 150 to 170 kilometer range if you're taking a 9,000 to 11,000 pound trailer. Of course, 10,000 pound in this case. And lighter loads, probably 200 to 300 kilometers per truck.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty fair estimate for both of these. So keep in mind, that's going to cover 80% of use cases. Towing an RV across the country is going to be a little bit harder. You'll be stopping every 100 miles or 170 kilometers to top up. And this one has the charge port on the side near the front, so you need a slightly longer charge cable. This one has it right at the corner of the front bumper. So kind of a handy placement for that.
And the one thing I will say is that it's just fun to try out something like this, because if I was towing my camper trailer, I would get a lot of looks because people seeing the size of it would not expect a 32-foot camper trailer behind it to be possible.
Yeah, but it can certainly take it.
People probably wouldn't blink an eye at the Ford, but like you'd mentioned earlier, this is actually slightly heavier than the Ford, so it actually handles trailering quite well and actually very smooth.
Yeah, now the wheelbase on these trucks might be a little bit different, so I'd still probably opt for the F-150 myself if I was to tow a large trailer, just because of that extra length and width on the truck. It might give you a little bit more stability. Although with that air ride suspension and all this, all the tuning they do to this, I don't think there's going to be an issue with either one of these trucks. It's just this one's more adventure-based, this one is more work-based. So which would you choose? So one of the other things that everybody wants to know about electric trucks is, what is the payload? What can you carry in the bed? Now this one is an extended range battery, and this one can take 1,952 pounds. And if you opt for the 98 kilowatt hour battery, you can actually take more payload in it. So if that vehicle being at a better price point, I think starting at around 80,000 Canadian, I'll put that up on the screen here. But if the 98 kilowatt hour fits your life, you can actually carry more weight with it than you can with the extended range battery. You can just do it for a further distance in this truck, of course. Now, Wes, you want to talk about the payload in the Rivian? Yeah,
so Rivian being a mid-sized truck and a much smaller bed, still does pretty impressive at 1,764 pounds for payload capacity, which for me would be more than enough of anything I can think of to put in there.
Yeah, now as you can see, we've actually raised up the Rivian now to its maximum height, and they're almost the same height now. So in this next section, we'll talk about the off-roading capabilities.
Hey everyone, we just want to talk a little bit about the clearance here. If you look under the Ford Lightning, you can see the shield there sitting, I don't know, let's say 8 inches off the ground. And then if we zoom and pan over, you'll see the Rivian has a way larger clearance. Now Rivian, keep in mind, was designed for the adventuring and off-road. Its software internally is all programmed to go up rock mountains, sand dunes. It has all different settings for everything to do with off-roading, which is what it's focused on. So it makes sense. It also has a couple cool features like a camp mode. So because it has independent suspension, wherever you place it, it'll self-level to perfectly flat within that suspension capability, adjusting all 4 sections of the truck to level it. Things like that, which are meant to be interesting, designed specifically for the adventuring side of the Rivian.
Okay, we're going to start off this comparison in the R1T. I'm going to drive the R1T, and Wes is going to drive the F-150 because we both have the opposite experience in these trucks, so let's see what it's like. Now, right off the bat, I'm going to mention that this one is a very Tesla-esque. It has the 2 scroll wheels on the steering wheel, but one of the best features I see in this truck is the fact that we have a manual wiper control on the one stock, as well as your lights. The 2 features that I cannot access in the Tesla, and it drives me nuts. Now, as we're coming to a stop here, this one does have 1 pedal driving, and it comes to a stop very aggressively. And as Wes said, this is in standard regen mode. It is very aggressive in the, what's the other mode called?
High mode. So there's low mode, standard and high. And in high mode, Yeah, I question if they actually built it more for the off-road side, for like crawling over hills and stuff, that it sort of self-slows. But it is aggressive, because I would say the Standard is slightly more aggressive than Tesla's full mode.
It is, but Tesla does not have very strong regen, and it actually changes as you're going along. If it's a cold battery, you get less regen than you normally would. Do you find that this has the same regen all the time?
So far, I have yet, and I've had it in, minus 10 Celsius, minus 15, and it's still as aggressive.
Okay, so that's very much like the Hyundai products, where you have the same regen all the time, which I actually like. It may not be as good for the battery, but the software engineers know what they're doing, so I'm going to trust that.
Let's hope.
Now, one thing I'm noticing here is this has one pedal driving, but one of the things about the Tesla that I always liked is the pedal is very firm. I can rest my foot on it while I'm driving, and it doesn't push the pedal down, so it allows me very fine control over it. This one has a very light pedal, just like my Hyundai Kona. So if I let off aggressively, you get a lot of regen very quickly, and you can't just keep your foot rested on it. You have to hold it and modulate it somewhere in the middle. So that's where cruise control comes in. I'm assuming here.
Yep.
Yes, these controls are very familiar to me. It's just like a Tesla product where you push it down once to set your cruise control. So very handy.
Yep. No, I've been very happy with it so far. The some of the difference on the control side. Well, first of all, obviously, I'm a big fan, coming from a Model 3, of having a screen directly in front of me that contains the map, because this often becomes music or something else, I find, the main one, and it actually shows my speed easily, which is just nice to have directly in front of you, in my opinion.
Yep.
So I am happy about that. And it's so far running really good. Right now we have it in the sport mode at the lowest setting, so it's meant to be performance based at the moment. How are you finding the ride?
Ride's pretty good. It's what I would expect from a mid-sized pickup truck. I'm not expecting a very plush luxury ride here. As Matt would say, it does not have the ride of a Lexus or like one of the old Cadillacs of the day with that floaty suspension. This is definitely firm, and it actually feels kind of sports car-esque.
Yeah.
Which is interesting for a 7,000-pound truck that can go, woo, 0 to 60 in 3 seconds.
Now, what I will say is, if you're okay with it, you okay if I put it in standard road mode at the softer suspension, so you feel the difference?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so
now this is an option you're not going to get in the F-150 Lightning.
So I'm just going to put it in all-purpose, which brings your ride height up to more standard, and it rides softer. I find actually like this, it now starts to ride more like that luxury feel. The bumps start to disappear. I find, assuming you're not being aggressive, I actually find the overall pretty nice. So.
Yeah. Now we're comparing this to the F-150 Lightning, not Tesla. I know we'll keep bringing it up, but just comparing suspension, it gives you an idea of how those things feel. A Tesla vehicle is very, very planted, and I'm actually quite impressed with their suspension, but one thing they don't do well is those small cracks in the road. You feel every bump and every crack in the road. It's incredible. We're not feeling that here. You can feel them come under the vehicle, but they're dampened out fairly nicely. That's what I'm finding.
Well, and especially this is on 21-inch rims.
That's impressive for 21-inch rims.
And that's the stock ones that it comes with. You can, I think, get up to 23-inch rims, which I think would be a harder ride. Because obviously you'd have a lower profile on the tire.
But you can also get a 20-inch rim, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct, for
with
the adventure.
off-road tires.
Yes, correct. If you want to go and be real off-roader, absolutely.
Yeah, which you do sacrifice a little bit of range there. But I'm sure there's aftermarket capabilities. Although the off-road version of this one has better and thicker skid plates, doesn't it?
You can buy skid plates as a feature, for sure. Yeah. I just chose not to, because for the amount of off-roading I do, that wasn't my focus.
There's not many people that extreme off-road their vehicles. However, I will invite you to the idea that we might want to take this to Minden's off-road park and see how it does.
I would be totally open to that. That'd be awesome.
Okay, so maybe in the future you might see that. So, focusing on that off-road-esque performance of this vehicle, the adventure aspect of it, this Rivian can wade through 3 feet of water. That is a feat incredible of any off-road vehicle on the market, let alone an electric vehicle. They must have this thing sealed up really well.
Yeah, no, it's for me, factoring it also has that really high clearance. Now you're really talking some deep water. You know what I mean? And so it's pretty cool that way. For me, though, overall, it's got a good feel. I do have to admit, I like the look of the Ford on the inside, and when we review that, I'm going to be fun to do the comparison for sure. But I'll be honest, the performance on it, the fact it's actually faster than my Model 3 performance, it beat the TRX by 165 feet in the quarter mile. That's pretty crazy.
That is incredible, because that's one of the fastest trucks on the market, at least when it comes to ICE vehicles.
Now,
so this checks all the boxes then for you. It may not be a full-size utility truck, but like that 0 to 60 time, the off-road capability, 3 feet of weighting, up to 15 inches of clearance when you put it in the max mode. And the interior on this thing is incredible. We have real wood in the dash. We have stitching everywhere. It's just a really nice place to be with a full glass roof. Now I will mention, because we are comparing this to the F-150 Lightning, this roof does not open. It is a fixed roof, just like on the Tesla products.
Yes. And it's honestly, for me, it's the right truck for me, I feel. Now, having said that, I'm quite excited to try the F-150 Lightning. Do not misunderstand. But it's really cool. Like, for example, here, I can bring up the bed camera even while we're driving.
That is handy. There are times when I'm towing a trailer, and in my car, I can check the trailer out. This is fantastic. Make sure everything is
and I can also go to the low, where it is actually check your hitch.
Yep.
Sorry, that went to front, and then we check your hitch. So all the cameras are accessible even while in motion. So it's nice for that way as well. The music's great on it. They upgrade the speakers. The one nice thing with Rivian, or maybe not nice, but is that there's very little differential. The one thing really cool about the Fords for me, which is also the challenge, is there's just so many features.
You can customize every part of the truck. I know the Lariat F-150 Lightning comes with 8-speaker Bang & Olufsen system. You can get a multi-speaker system in the Platinum. You can get trailer packages. You can do things to the box. You can customize every part of the truck. One thing you can't customize, though, is because it is the electric version of the truck, it comes with a 5.5-foot bed, and it comes with a crew cab. That's your only option for an F-150 Lightning at the time.
Well, they had to create some limitations, but it still comes with your heavy-duty tower, you said, right?
Yep.
And you got your different battery sizes.
Mm-hmm.
It comes with different options, I believe, for your powering the house and stuff. Like, I think there's smaller options, right?
I believe the base system for the Pro Power onboard is the 2.4 kilowatt 120 volt. To get the 240 volt, you actually have to upgrade your Pro Power. It doesn't cost that much more, and I would highly recommend getting that higher Pro Power onboard system.
I do wish the Rivian had that type of option on it. So
yeah, but being an adventure vehicle, I think this is more useful, kind of like the Kia EV9 or the Hyundai Ioniq series of vehicles, where they have about a 1700 watt output. This one's sitting around 1500 watt. It powers everything on the campsite, which is what you would normally be using it for. This one probably isn't going to be your tradesman's truck going to the job site every day, especially at the price point that this is in.
Agreed.
Now, F-150 Lightning Platinum is actually very close to the Rivian levels of luxury. Yeah. And I think the Rivian has 4 battery options. They now offer a dual motor version as well as the quad motor version. We're in the quad motor today. 835 horsepower, 908 pound-feet of torque. That's just insane. But not everybody is going to opt for that, because that is $132,000 Canadian.
Now, one thing I will say is that had they offered the Max Pack with this, I would have done it, because originally when I put in my order, that was an option which got removed. But the reason I didn't go to the two-motor Max Pack was that I went from 3 seconds 0 to 60 to an unimpressive 3.7.
Yeah.
Drop the horsepower down into the 700s from the 800s.
No, we want the fun toy. That's what that truck is for. And you have more than enough range. As you said, realistic range, you can push 500 kilometers in this truck, and that's more than enough. And it's not like that Max trailer tow package, that's the wrong wording. It's not like that Max battery system is going to tow that trailer across the country. So it's still not going to get you that much farther. It matters more the kind of charge time you have. And Ford is going to have the first access to Tesla superchargers, as of this video, is about 3 days ago. And Rivian is getting access to those superchargers next month. Yep. So it actually, the charging infrastructure matters more than the size of the battery. So get the biggest battery you can afford, unless the small battery fits your daily needs. And you have to rely on the infrastructure. And luckily, that's not going to be a problem anymore.
Oh no, I mean, you have all the governments even across North America pushing for the infrastructure.
Yeah.
I mean, you actually have the governments fighting to push towards EV and hybrids solely for automotive in Canada, for example.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, yes, we're definitely, that infrastructure is only growing, I would say.
So we're about to end this test drive, so I'm only going to cover two more things. The Rivian does come with a heat pump, and that is very crucial for getting the most amount of range you can. Your last car didn't have that, and you noticed that it did suffer from it. But I have noticed in these larger pickup trucks that with these huge batteries, the heating losses are so much less than they are in a car. So I'm glad the heat pump is there, but it's not going to have as big of a difference as you think it will. On the last point before we get out, it's a little smaller in here. We're a little closer.
We are.
But it's very comfortable. It's very nice. It's exactly what you expect in a mid-size pickup truck.
And how did you find the drive? Was it good?
Oh, it's excellent. In fact, it's so good I didn't even notice I was driving anything, really. It's just so smooth. So we're going to head over to the F-150 Lightning now and have Wes at the helm.
I'm super excited. I want to try this out, so this will be great.
Okay, well, now we're in the F-150 Lightning with Wes at the wheel, so let's see what he thinks of this truck.
Yeah, just before moving anywhere, it reminds me much more of a truck. Very similar to my Ford Expedition. Even the trailer control system is identical fundamentally.
Yep.
So I definitely feel at home in here, no question. You and I are definitely further apart. I feel almost lonely now. We want definitely more interior volume and definitely a wider truck. So
yeah, so anybody who likes trucks, you're going to love this thing. Get in, test drive it. You're going to love it.
All right, let's give it a try here.
So we've already talked about a lot of these things in other videos, but the shifter can actually fold flat, and this actually flips out and turns into a clipboard area, which is great for working. And we got some neat things up here. We got USB ports. We actually have the Pro Powers available right up here at the front and in the back seat. Comes with the built-in trailer brake controller and that Pro trailer system. Now, we haven't talked about that. Matt has talked about that extensively. It's a very unique system. Some people like it, some people don't. But it can actually back up to a trailer for you. Now, this one does come with a few different camera angles, just like the Rivian does. So you can check out your payload, you can check out your trailer on the go.
Now, I will note that the regen braking is nowhere near as strong.
However, it is blended into the brake pedal.
It is, yep. No, but I just, it does have you use the brake, though. No question. So, it's just an interesting style difference.
Yeah, and this one actually has something called a brake coach on it, so it shows you how much of your energy you've returned to the battery every time you do a brake application.
No, I think it's great. It's just different being coming from a different style. And I will say it drives like a truck. It drives more like my Ford Expedition, which I like. Don't misunderstand.
Yep.
I don't dislike how a truck drives, but it definitely feels like I'm in a truck and I like it.
Yeah, but you don't have that engine sound.
Nope, for sure. And she's got pep.
Oh, yeah.
She still knows how to move, for sure.
Yeah, if I have my figures correct here, I think it's 580 horsepower and 775 pound-feet of torque. If you opt for the lower battery, you actually get a lower number than that. I'll just post that on the screen here. But while we're talking about noise levels in the cabin, I'm noticing the little symbol in the corner that says sound screen on this. That's why there's not a lot of wind noise coming in from the front windshield. I will say when I was driving the Ford Escape plug-in hybrid, it's actually quite noisy in there. Single pane windows, not the same kind of ceiling. Obviously, the Lightning, they spend some time on the noise because you can hear all the creaks and rattles in an electric vehicle. And it is very quiet in here for something that isn't very aerodynamic. But this is all fairly standard F-150 stuff. I specifically picked the XLT today with the long-range battery because I think it's what everybody needs. It doesn't have that huge vertical screen on it. I actually really like that there are physical buttons for the climate control system. There is a physical tuning knob. There is a physical volume knob. So in my mind, I like this better than the Lariat and the Platinum. Your opinions might differ, but that's how I'm sitting right now. Okay, so speaking of the climate control system in that, I actually had some real world figures from people who drive these. You can get about 380 kilometers in the winter, 480 kilometers in the summer, of course, when you're not towing a trailer. Now, this is a 2023 model that we're sitting in right now, which still uses a resistive heater. And judging by those range figures, it doesn't seem to affect the range at all. Whereas in 2024 is the first year they've offered a heat pump in the F-150 Lightning. It's something called a vapor injection heat pump. So it should be fairly efficient. I believe that means that it breaks up the Freon into smaller particles so it can capture so much more heat and transfer it to where it needs to go. So if you opt for a higher spec package in the F-150 Lightning, it does offer something called Blue Cruise, which means that it will do driving for you pretty much as long as you're on marked highways. It doesn't work like the autopilot systems that you've heard of. This one only works on specific highways listed here in Canada and the United States, but from users of the Blue Cruise system, I hear it works very well. In this XLT that we're in today, it does have radar guided cruise control, but not the full Blue Cruise system. Now, it does work very well. I've used Ford's system for quite a while. It ignores cars that are turning in front of you. The automatic high beams work very well in this vehicle. It's just a really good package altogether.
One thing I can also say is the room in the back is huge. There's so much space. I assume those seats can fold up, and you can make a ton of space back there from anything from dogs to tools to whatever you need. So it's got a lot of great room in this vehicle, and yeah, be nice and spacious. Love it.
And I think the use cases for this truck are just absolutely endless. Like I said, it only covers 80% of people's uses because it doesn't tow across the country. But if you need to tow a large trailer locally, it does great. If you want to tow a landscape trailer, landscaping, I think, is one of this truck's biggest strong suits. You can tow a trailer full of lawnmowers, and you can even do full electric setup with it. Because with that Pro Power onboard system, you can actually charge the batteries of your tools while you're driving. So imagine you could buy this truck and right out of the gate, you can start a fully electric landscaping business. They even have electric lawn tractors now, electric zero turns that are professional quality. And it's just one of the best uses for this truck. There's so many possibilities, contractors and everything. So there's so many people that can use this every day, and you will never run out of range. Okay, we're coming to the end of this video. So this is the part where we're gonna wrap up our thoughts and choose which vehicle would we pick. So, Wes, we're going to start with you. Which one would you pick? I think this is going to be pretty obvious.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely going to side with Rivian. For me, the concept and what it does is exactly what my lifestyle would like. I love the features on it and things like that. But for me, the truck size just fits our lifestyle, as well as what it can do is just a ton of fun and really cool technology. But even though I would pick Rivian, I just want to be very clear. I think what the Ford Lightning does is amazing. I traded my Tesla for the Rivian, not my Ford Expedition Max, because I love my Ford Expedition Max, and if I can give a shout out to Ford, they make the best high towing SUV in the world. I love my Expedition, but I love my Rivian for different reasons.
Yeah, I'd give a nod to the Rivian here, but all day long I would still pick the F-150 Lightning. It doesn't quite have the tech of the Rivian. It does not have that air suspension or the same ground clearance and off-road capabilities. Now, that being said, it still does offer a locking differential. Comes with independent suspension in the back and in the front, which gives a really, really good ride in here. So even though you can't change the ride height, you're still gonna love the drive in this truck. And the utility factor of this truck just can't be beat. That Pro Power onboard with the 240 volt outlet, you can power your entire house with this thing. And another reason why I like this truck so much is just the price point. There's a price point for everybody. You start in the $80,000 range. You can go all the way up to the Platinum at 119,000 Canadian. So you can find any feature you want. But for me, the XLT is where it's at. It's got all the features I need and even still feels luxurious for what it is. And of course, it comes with all-wheel drive, comes with a huge trunk on it, comes with a massive bed. You can fit 3 car seats across the back. Now, the Rivian, I don't think you're going to fit 3 car seats across the back.
I would agree.
You need that going into
for
it,
sure, 100%. Yeah. It's still more mid-size than full-size, for sure.
So we got mid-size, 7,000 pounds, and we got the full-size, 6,600 pounds. I'm picking the F-150 Lightning. I want to know what you think. Leave your comments down below and ask any questions between these two trucks. They're both available to us. We can do different challenges in the future. And if you like this video, like and subscribe, and thank you for watching.